So my topic is Descartes, soul, mind and body. And Descartes is well known for his dualism, his view that mind and body are things of different kinds. And as the originator of the mind-body problem, the problem of how these two things are related. As we've seen, a dualism of soul and body is as old as Plato. But Descartes' dualism, I think, is genuinely new. He is an innovator, and he presents himself as such. Descartes reconceives what the soul is and what it does, repackaging it into the mind, and this transformation is shaped by his new conception of the physical world, his new conception of what the body can and cannot do. To highlight what's new in Descartes' vision, I shall contrast it with the Aristotelian views that he sought to supplant. So, in a letter written in 1641, a few months before the publication of his most famous work, the Meditations on First Philosophy, Descartes says, "I may tell you between ourselves that these 6 meditations contain all the foundations of my physics, but please do not tell people, for that might make it harder for supporters of Aristotle to approve them. I hope that readers will gradually get used to my principles and recognize their truth before they notice that they destroy the principles of Aristotle." There's a reason why Descartes was so cautious, which we can come back to if you want. So how do the principles of Aristotle differ from those of Descartes? I'm going to sketch a kind of Aristotelian view, or a Christianized Aristotelian. The Aristotelian view is, in many ways, the familiar world that appears to our senses. The sun moves through the heavens, revolving around the earth and the celestial spheres. The earth is populated by a variety of different things of different kinds with different natures. Their natures give them distinctive goals, powers, and activities. Stones fall downwards because, having an earthy nature, they seek their natural resting place at the center of the earth. So the explanation is teleological in terms of the telos, or end, or goal, conferred by a thing's nature. Aristotelian metaphysics, as Chiara was saying, is hylomorphic. So particular things, individual substances, an oak tree, a cat, a dog, a human being, are composed of matter and form, interdependent. The form gives them their nature. It determines the kind of thing that they are. We are all humans. So in each of us, the human substantial form is joined to a different parcel of matter. In living things, the soul is the form, the principle of life. The soul confers the powers and goals that are distinctive of different kinds of living things. So plants have a nutritive soul. An oak tree is able to nourish itself, to grow and reproduce. Animals have a sensitive soul. A cat, a dog, is able to grow and reproduce, but it can also sense and move about to seek its prey. Humans have an intellectual soul. They can grow, reproduce, sense and move about like animals, but they can also think and understand the distinctively human powers. So Aristotle says soul is the source of these phenomena and is characterized by them, namely by the powers of self-nutrition, sensation, thinking and movement. Right, that's the human soul. How do we come to understand this world and our place within it on the Aristotelian view? The process for Aristotle begins with the senses. When we see a cat or a dog, our senses receive its likeness. They take on its form, as Matthias was saying. So our senses receive the black color, the warmth of its body. Right? Color, warmth, and other sensory qualities exist in the cat, in the dog, just as we perceive them. Right? When we've seen several cats, our intellect can grasp the form that is common to them all, can detect the common nature that they share, the form that makes them what they are, and so grasp the nature of cats. Thus, the senses provide the material for the intellectual understanding that is distinctive of us humans. Right? So as Aquinas says, there's nothing in the intellect that was not first in the senses. The senses provide the materials for the intellect. The world, as Descartes conceives of it, is very different. The universe is made up of a single kind of matter. The nature of this matter is to be extended in 3 dimensions. Matter is diversified solely through division into parts of different shapes and sizes, moving and arranged in different ways. So all the variety that we see in the physical world around us is due simply to these divisions and motions of this one kind of matter. So Descartes writes, "I recognize no matter in corporeal things apart from that which the geometers call quantity and take as the object of their demonstrations. Moreover, my consideration of such matter involves absolutely nothing apart from these divisions, shapes, and motions. All natural phenomena can be explained in this way." Right, so in Cartesian physics, we just have this one kind of matter divided into parts, moving around, arranged in different ways, colliding, and so on. The Earth and other planets revolve around the Sun. They revolve in a vortex created by the Sun's spinning motion. The Sun is a mass of tiny particles spinning very, very fast. Stones fall downward, not because they seek the center of the Earth, but because of the centrifugal force that's generated within this vortex. So in place of the teleological explanations of the Aristotelians, Descartes gives us mechanical explanations in terms of parts of matter moving in accordance with laws of motion established by God. So he writes, "I have described this Earth and indeed the whole visible universe as if it were a machine. I have considered only the various shapes and movements of its parts." So living bodies, then, are machines within the machine of this universe. So there are no nutritive or sensitive souls, as there are for Aristotle. Right. Vital functions are explained mechanically in terms of the structure of the body. The soul is no longer now the principle of life. Rather, the soul becomes the mind, a thing that thinks. So he says, "One of the most notable points in my meditations is that I refer nutrition to the body alone, not to the mind or that part of man which thinks. As for movement and sensation, I refer them to the body for the most part and attribute nothing belonging to them to the soul, apart from the element of thought alone. So in a human being, an immaterial thinking soul or mind is united to a living machine. Sensation and voluntary movement, right, the faculties of the Aristotelian sensitive soul, are split between mind and body. Right? Animals lacking thought have no souls. They are simply living machines. So, unlike the Aristotelian world, populated by many different individual substances composed of form and matter, the Cartesian world contains only 2 kinds of substance, mind and matter, entirely different in nature. Extended matter itself is now a substance, a thing that exists in its own right, not in combination with form. The mind, too, is a substance which can exist apart from matter, not in combination with the body, and its nature is simply to think. How do we humans come to understand this different world and our place in it? The physical world is composed of bits of colourless matter moving and colliding. That's not how it appears to our senses. We perceive bodies as black, red, warm, cold, but nothing like what we perceive exists in the bodies themselves. They're just these configurations of colourless matter. There are no forms for the intellect to abstract, no forms that make cats and dogs the kinds of things that they are. So it's not the senses that provide the materials for our understanding, but it's the intellect itself. For Descartes, our creator has stocked the human intellect with innate ideas that enable us to understand him and his creation. So ideas of substance, thought, geometrical extension, and God himself. Descartes says these ideas owe nothing to the senses. He says the ideas of God and the soul were never in the senses. In fact, in Descartes' view, our preoccupation with the senses, particularly in childhood, leads to habits of thought that hide these ideas from us, that hide our innate ideas from us. So the blueprint for Descartes' new vision, his new vision of the universe and of human beings, lies within the mind itself, in these innate ideas. So his meditations aim to guide us inwards to discover these innate ideas. Right? By doubting our senses, by supposing we might be dreaming, that the world of bodies might be a deception, an illusion, we turn within and the mind discovers itself for the first time. I am, I exist. That is certain, even if I'm being deceived. But for how long? For as long as I am thinking. I am then a thing that thinks. That is, I am a mind or intelligence or intellect or reason. Words whose meaning I have been ignorant of until now. So Descartes is presenting this as a new discovery of what we are. We are minds, thinking things. So the mind discovers itself by reflection on its own thinking. But what is thinking? Descartes says that the term thought, cogitatio, includes everything that is within us insofar as we are immediately aware or conscious of it. Thus, all the operations of the will, the intellect, the imagination, and the senses are thoughts. So the will and the intellect were distinctively human faculties of the Aristotelian intellectual soul. But imagining and sensing for the Aristotelians were activities of the embodied animal, whether human or not. But Descartes introduces a type of imagining and sensing that's purely mental, just a form of thought. Right? This type of sensing he describes as seeming to see light. Right? I have an idea of light, I seem to see light, even if I'm dreaming, even if there's no light to see, even if I have no eyes to see light with. Right? So for Descartes, all thinking involves ideas, and ideas present objects to the mind, objects that may or may not exist outside it. So I am a mind then, but a mind united to a body to make one thing. So by the time we get to the sixth meditation, the body has come back into the picture. And here he says, there is nothing that my own nature teaches me more vividly than that I have a body. I am not merely present in my body as a sailor is present in a ship, but I am very closely joined and, as it were, intermingled with it, so that I and the body form one thing. If this were not so, I, who am nothing but a thinking thing, would not feel pain when the body was hurt, but would perceive the damage purely by the intellect, as a sailor perceives damage to his ship. So sensations of pain tell us that there's something wrong with our bodies. Sensations of hunger tell us when our bodies need food. God has given us what Descartes calls these confused perceptions of our bodies to serve our preservation as living beings, so we know when the body is damaged, so we know when the body needs food. Our perceptions of external bodies serve the same function. We perceive the fire as hot rather than simply seeing it as matter in motion, as it is in itself. The heat I feel can alert me to a potential danger. Emotions too, or passions, as Descartes calls them, arising from the union of mind and body, are designed to further our preservation as well by guiding us away from harms and towards benefits, things that can help our survival as living beings. So he says the natural function of the passions is to move the soul to consent and contribute to actions which may serve to preserve the body. Fear, for example, involves both mind and body. It prepares the body for flight, and it makes the mind want to flee. Descartes' last work, The Passions of the Soul, 1649, so published in the year before he died in Sweden, explores the ways in which our emotional responses can be affected by our past experience, and the ways in which we can and cannot control them through deliberation, through reason. To use one of Descartes' examples, if I was frightened by a cat as a baby, I may have a lasting aversion to cats. Right? Since the fear response is, as Descartes says, imprinted on the brain, it cannot simply be eliminated at will. Right? To control it, I have to take an indirect route. I have to train myself to respond differently. I have to dwell on the fact that the cat is actually harmless. So although Descartes is sometimes criticized for neglecting the emotions, that is the focus of this final work. The Passions of the Soul, this final work, grew out of Descartes' correspondence with Princess Elizabeth of Bohemia. This began in 1643 when the 24-year-old princess wrote to ask him how the mind can act on the body. If the soul is not extended in space, How can it make contact with the mechanism of the body and affect its motions? Elizabeth asks. Descartes answers that the mind does not move the body by contact in the way that one body moves another. Mind and body have the power to affect one another because in it, God has joined them, united them to form a human being. This is just a primitive fact about our natures as human beings, something we grasp through sensing and feeling our experience of embodiment rather than through intellectual experience. So he says, he tells Elizabeth, everyone feels that he is a single person with body and thought so related by nature that the thought can move the body and feel the things which happen to it.
Brilliant.
So Elizabeth was dissatisfied with Descartes' answer, as many have been. But I think Descartes' legacy is complex. So the details of his physics have been superseded. His conception of the material world is too austere. But the project of explaining natural phenomena in physical terms continues, right? The scientific project. Descartes' assignment of vital functions to the body transforms the soul into the principle of conscious thought, a mind, and this could be seen as the first step on the path to a science of the mind, psychology. His conception of the mind as seat of sensation, imagination, and emotion, alongside intellect and will, remains with us, and so does the question of how thought and consciousness arise within the brain. That mind-body problem remains as live as ever. So, thank you.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.